You know, when the great author on Night Gallery, Scott Skelton, helped co-write the ultimate, what do you call, review or encyclopedia of Night Gallery a few years ago, whether it was him or his co-writer, didn't really have good words per se about this episode, even though, in my opinion, it's a top 10 Rod Serling written, what do you call, teleplay of all time. Now, the waiting room is so good that if you saw it for the first time, you would think this was going to be a big screen movie. Ever did a 90-minute movie on this, would have been tremendous. But in its pretty well a half an hour, there's so much going on here, and what a Western cast. Steve Forrest, who's always tremendous, Albert Salmi, Buddy Ebsen of all people, Gilbert Rollin, Jim Davis of Dallas fame, Lex Barker, and Larry Watson. Now, according to David Jewell's WordPress, we're going to talk about his interpretation of it and also my memories of it. I watched this. I'm chilled to the bone. I did an original podcast on this quite a time ago, and it's got a lot of hits. But I think it should be updated because you see all the modern westerns now, and they're not even taking this as a gatepost to how to do a really gothic TV western, and that's what it is. Now, this Night Gallery story, David gives it 4 stars, and I give it 4 stars as well. It starts off very, very unique. A man rides in on horseback and approaches a tall tree that has been just hosted a lynching. The hangee is still swinging from a limb, its face shrouded. The face of the man on horseback shows a sense of satisfaction at the sight. He continues on until he comes to a saloon and enters it. The sole occupants? 4 men at the table playing cards and a bartender, which was it's a big Western trope where there's the bartender said, give me a shot of whiskey. People are playing a game of cards in the corner. We've seen that in every Western. But here it's a twist. Now, we know right away we're in American West, circa late 19th century, maybe 1880. The card-playing men look up at the new arrival while he goes to the bar and orders a whiskey. The bartender, Gilbert Rollin, gives him a generous glassful, and the man asks him to leave the bottle, another trope. The man sarcastically asks the bartender if he's always this busy, to which he replies, more or less. Now, the man eventually approaches the card player's table and he stopped their game. Don't let me cramp you, he says. The eldest of the men, Doc Soames, played by the great Buddy Ebsen, assures him, you're not Mr. Dichter. The Steve Forrest character says, you know me? Replies, oh, the eminent Samuel Dichter. Soames states grandly, you have the advantage on me, Dichter says. Now, as the card players don't seem to be keen on conversation, Dichter returns to the bar and asks the barkeep if he witnessed the hanging. The bartender demurs and says that sort of thing gives him no pleasure, but to Dichter, he kind of gets off it and he says witnessing a hanging derives great pleasure, especially if the hanging twitches and struggles some before the end, emitting a true sadistic streak. Now, this kind of relates to the fact maybe the character has performed a lynching of an enemy and he's killed him, a la kind of the bad scene in Lonesome Dove, where one of their buddies had to be murdered by Robert Duvall's character, but, you know, not sadistic, but sad. Now, ironically, the clock that you don't really know is a character on this happens. The clock on the wall strikes 9 p.m. and his fellow card players remind Charlie McKinley, good name for a villain, by the way, Lex Barker, that it's time to depart. He says he too knows Dichter, but Dichter can't immediately recall him. With a little prodding, Dichter recalls that McKinley was supposedly shot dead in the back of the head outside a saloon some years ago. Now, McKinley exits the bar and we hear gunfire. Alarmed, Dichter rushes to the door, expecting the others who also want to check out the commotion outside, but they are all strangely nonplussed, as if what happened was completely expected. Soames tells Dichter what happened. McKinley was shot in the back of the head, just he had been years earlier. And Soames kind of talks in a way that, you know, if you want to live a long life, I can tell you what happened when someone gets shot in the back of the head, you don't survive. Now, moving on like nothing unusual happened, the players asked Dichter to take McKinley's seat at the table. The man to Dichter's left, Joe Bresto, played by the great Albert Salmi, insults Dichter because Dichter can't figure out what's going on. The character of Salmi's character is basically doesn't like Dichter from the start. With more prodding, Dichter is able to summon the memory of when he witnessed Bresto gunned down previously. Dichter thinks he must be suffering from a fever. How else to explain how he could know these men whose violent deaths have already occurred? He demands medicine from Soames, but a doctor tells him the only cure for his is to retire his gun belt. So we don't know if he's in a kind of a loop or a limbo or what's going on. Now, Dichter and Bristow are about to have their animosity take the form of a duel when the clock chimes 10. And Bristow basically said, you don't have the brain of a vulture or whatever, like a stupid vulture. Now it's time for Bristow to go outside and begin to hear the sound of gunshots. Now more and more panic. Dichter can't understand what is going on. Then the clock strikes 11 and Abe Bennett, Jim Davis, who says 5 words can say 1,000, rises. Before he leaves, he tells a story how he robbed a bank, killed a man, for a measly haul of $20. Then he tried to hide out in the belfry when he was gunned down there, getting tangled in the bell's rope on the way down. The bell was still ringing when his lifeless carcass was tossed him on a horse to take him away. He leaves to relive his fate. Now, Dichter asks Soames what the point of this is. We all of us with a gun, a Colt 45, till death do us part, he says. He stayed on the good side of things, a medical man, but he patched up wounded gunslingers who would go on to kill again, and one day he realized, for all the killers I'd saved, I'd spat in God's eye, and this is where we figure out what's going on. Now, midnight chimes as Soames continued to explain that he finally could no longer live with his conscience and turn a gun upon himself. The elusive point is that we, all of us, were doomed from the moment we took up firearms. He steps aside to again accept his fate. Now Dichter, nearly crazed, asks the bartender what this place is. The bartender replies, it's a waiting room. Some call it hell. Now, the bartender played by Roland could be anything. It could be a dark angel, it could be the devil himself. I think it's the conscience of the good part of life, and he has to judge evil and basically allow evil to suffer because he's a good side of the gun, like the sheriff or whatever. Now the clock, instead of ending at midnight, chimes at 1 o'clock. And then Roland's character says, it's closing time, Mr. Dichter. No doubt I'll be seeing you again, says the bartender. Dichter strongly rejects this as he has no memory of his death at the end of a gun barrel or otherwise. Now, outside there are sounds of a crowd gathering. The bartender says it's the sound of Dichter's jury. Dichter steps outside and then we see him on horseback, as in the beginning, approaching the corpse hanging from the tree branch. This time he pulls down the mask on the victim's face and sees that it's his own, bloated and pale, on the end of that man hanging. He screams and runs and comes upon a bar, the same bar as before, and when he enters, the clock strikes 9. Now, eventually it repeats again, where Roland's bartender gives him a drink. Now, for many, this is a favorite night gallery for years, and it freaked out a lot of people. I know it freaked out me when I did one of my earlier podcasts on the channel. I used spooky music and the famous photo, which kind of mimics the shootout, the OK Corral photo. Now, according to Jewel, the mood is tense throughout, but at 27 minutes is a little bit too short. I'd like to see 40 or 45 minutes. Now, the script by Rod Serling is kind of, not say repetitive, but it takes all the tropes and puts it together. But direction by Genoa Schwartz was just pretty tremendous. The only thing I can compare it to, ladies and gentlemen, a night gallery oeuvre, is the 3 parts in the pilot and the caterpillar. That's the top 5 episodes of Night Gallery in my personal opinion. Now, why does this work on first viewing? Because we all know Jim Davis, we all know Buddy Ebsen, a lot of Twilight Zone fans know Albert Salmi, because Albert Salmi was a big part of the half an hour episodes of Serling's original creation. But this is a tour de force, ladies and gentlemen. It can't be better acted. It pays perfectly, and can only be understood if this came out, I think, in January of 1972. I would recommend any Halloween party play this episode, and it would freak the fuck out of every person there. You don't have to be a Western fan or a Rod Serling fan. This should have been, like, there should have been a Night Gallery redo of this, like a Night Gallery movie, which is not out of the question. I'd like to see a Night Gallery redo of this and what they call the Holocaust episode of the movie, this and the Caterpillar, in like a 90-minute to 120-minute Night Gallery movie. You know what would be perfect in this? Russell Crowe, okay, Tom Hanks, maybe one of the Wayans brothers, get a black character in there too. But the bartender performance is the best. Gilbert Roland, he knows everything is going on, but he's not the one that's going to face the wrath of hell, because he's just a bartender. Say like the George Jones song, I'm Just a Bartender. Ladies and gentlemen, when I first saw this, I was only 7 or 8 years old. It scared me for years about going into bars. Even now, I can't even go to a bar late at night because I'm scared that Gilles Barrera will be waiting behind the counter judging my life. But ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine Lee Marvin? Can you imagine James Best in this too? But Buddy Ebsen, I don't know how they got him for the episode. That's just complete perfect, like playing a kindly country doctor. And Buddy Ebsen, how many evil characters has Buddy Ebsen played through the years? Very few. Salmi's perfect because, he's psychologically, God bless him, he had some bad times at the end of his life. He obviously made some wrong decisions, but as an actor, I still respect him. And Jim Davis, ladies and gentlemen, took away from us way too soon. Jim Davis, what a tremendous actor. Every scene he does. And Woody Strode would have been good in this version. I'm even recasting it as well. Woody Strode would have been perfect. Fred Williamson, like a black character in there to get to touch everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing with our Night Gallery Revision podcast, it's the second version of The Waiting Room. I think for the people that haven't heard the episode, please check it out. It's available for free. Was it on Vimeo, or it's available online for free? But the idea about this episode, ladies and gentlemen, it hits it out of the park, and it's on Daily Motion. It's combined with, of course, the Last Rites with a Dead Druid, season 2, episode 18. So it is available on Daily Motion if you can deal with the cheapo dog commercials that will be shown. Again, scary, scary, scary. 5 Colt 45s out of 5. 10 water troughs out of 10. 15 bad Cloris Leachman scenes and Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid out of 15. This will freak you out like you wouldn't believe. And if you can go to bed after watching this, you're better than me. So again, The Waiting Room, don't wait to watch it. Daily Motion, check it out tonight. Let me know what you think. And don't forget, Rod Serling could write anything. Sometimes he ripped off himself. How many Western episodes of Twilight Zone was there? I think it was 7 or 8. And it is what it is. Thanks for listening. Bye.